Or
by
in person.
noon. She's gonna be here actually in person by noon.
Okay, and then Tom will be joining virtually. But he's traveling, so he may be a little late.
No, I see.
Yeah, so I think Tom, Matt, and Terry are all at the same conference.
Right. And then Jeff Sullivan,
He's just texted me, he's gonna be coming this late.
okay, but he's coming or out virtual?
He's gonna be,
That's what I thought,
yeah,
okay.
he's gonna be coming in virtual.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I know we're gonna have people joining us as we go through this conversation. But we wanted to get it started and open up and call the meeting to order. The first part is the October 9th. So we don't have just October 9th meetings, we're minutes. The minutes, we actually have to approve the September and.
We have the September approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can do that together, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we sent out, I sent out the minutes from, what was the date? September?
Yes. Want me to share the screen with the minutes too?
There we go. September,
Jeff Sullivan.
Jeff is there.
Jeff was there.
Okay, meeting one. I'll share this screen and then we can pull up meeting two.
Yeah, you wanna let Jeff in?
Yes. Nah.
That was September 11.
September, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
September 11, yeah.
Auspicious date.
Yes, that's exactly. Okay,
And then I'll pull up this-
And then the other one on October.
9th.
Yeah, which I have also.
Okay, so first thing we need to do is approve the minutes. I think everybody had a chance to review them. Is there any comments or on the minutes or anything anybody wants to raise an issue on those? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to approve them.
The screen is in scrolling.
I think we lost.
We lost them? No. No, there are 5 participants there.
Yeah. Oh, man. Return.
You know what? Stop sharing, that's fine.
We
I
can,
think they've all seen it.
Screen sharing.
I think they've all stopped. I think
Yeah.
they've all seen me.
can you still,
Okay,
can
I
you
want
hear
to
us?
stop sharing. Because I don't know where they are. Is everybody there?
They're there.
Yeah.
Darren, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can't hear him.
I can hear you. I'm good.
Speak. Speak.
I can hear the room.
I
I can hear Adrian.
move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Anybody opposed? We'll go that way. No, nothing opposed. So minutes are approved. That's 9th.
Yep, now that was the 11th, this is now the 9th, just to double check.
Yeah. Okay. So again, any comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Nothing. All in favor. Okay, perfect. Minutes are done. You good? I don't know what's happening when you're sharing. I don't know what's going on there. All right, so first item on the agenda today is the update on the study. So there's been a development since our last meeting and we wanted to kind of get the task force up to speed on this. We were originally looking to go to a consultant to do the study, and there is a lack of funding to do that. So we are gonna pivot to doing this in-house, and that's gonna be a good part of the discussion here today to see how we can do that. But before I move on, and just Councilman Gonzalez, would you like to say a couple words or?
On this item?
Yes, just on this item and about the
Yes.
task force, just to kind of update us on where we all stand.
Yes, again, thank you so much for having me here. You can call me Natalie.
Thank you.
And on the funding situation, I have complete trust. Just putting the money on the side, to be completely honest with you, I have complete trust that we have the experts in-house, starting with Bilal, who has worked on the planning department for many years, and now he's here. And I know he can coordinate with the planning department and other sources to get what we need to kick us off. So that's number one. And I honestly, with the expertise that we have in-house, we can beat any expert or whatever consultant that will probably had to spend a significant amount of time just to get into know the area. So that's number one. It's not that I don't want to request somebody with my colleagues. It's like, I just have so much confidence in these guys that and I truly mean it, that I think we can move forward like that. That's one part. Second part, and this is the political reality that I want to bring to the table. As you all know, we're gonna have a brand new county executive in 2 years because the ballot measure passed, right? Half of my colleagues from the county council will be gone. Really. So we're gonna have a brand new people, and I see that as an opportunity. I really do, because this task force is gonna be producing a report a year from now, right? A year from now, that means campaign time. We're gonna be pushing messaging that this is something that Montgomery County wants and need. We're gonna be educating candidates, and I'm gonna make sure of that, about this effort, and for them to see the value of investing on the sports industry and investing on this multi-use facility that we all want for, for sports events, for high school graduations, and so on and so forth. And then once we have a new council, a new county executive, and they buy into this idea, which I think it's very possible, then the real talk on money will come in. How much money can Montgomery County and the state delegation too, not just Montgomery County, contribute to make this vision that this independent task force put together a reality? Because we're talking about millions of dollars, right?
Yep.
So everything, I think the schedule really matches with the reality that we have. And that's my take, and then you can
Yep.
put on the other part that you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think just as, and I'll open up to the room here for a little bit of a discussion. And I think you just raised a great point. And, if we're gonna look for state funding,
Yeah.
right? So the state funding and that side of it. The question then becomes, can we put this all together into a package? And then deliver it maybe to a consultant that gives us a final
Yeah.
review and recommendation. And I'll throw that out to the group. And I say that is, as we look at it, I know when the state looks at things, they look a lot to the Stadium Authority and their research. And so maybe if we partner with them and their consultant, maybe there's a way to kind of get that final piece done that way.
So
And-
first piece, internal,
Yeah,
second piece, yes,
that way.
makes
And
total
then,
sense.
maybe there's a little bit of money that's needed for that, but we can do that into the next budget cycle. And maybe we can kind of just build this up and we can do a lot of legwork. But I wanted to just open it up to comments to everybody that's here now. And just so everybody knows, I think Tom, Terry, and Matt Lieber are all at the same conference this week. So they were all trying to dial in, but I don't think they're gonna make it. I do have a follow-up meeting with Terry on Friday, to kind of just talk to him about from the Stadium Authority standpoint and what's out there as well. But I wanted to just open it up to the floor and see if anybody has any comments or any suggestions or ideas.
I was gonna make I have a question about, since we just approved the minutes in a procedural way, whether or not we have quorum. Maybe there's no decisions to be made
Oh, yeah.
today, final, but
That's a great, thank you. What do we?
Five, we're five.
And how many of, you have,
Maybe,
Nine.
I mean, task force one.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Eight. Oh, yeah, we have, five, yeah, you have quorum, you have quorum.
Okay. And then just make the note that we have the agency folks on, but not some of the industry folks. And so it probably not the full body that we need to
Yeah.
really, give
Yeah,
you
I
the
don't-
feedback you're looking for, I think, but.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Darren. I don't think we're gonna get, to your point, I think this is not gonna get resolved today and finalizing out, but I think it was a good starting point.
Sure.
Any other comments, Darren?
Well, I think just in terms of doing it internally, obviously, congratulations, Bilal, on the work program.
You should have.
But also, the Parks Department has sort of contributed some of the data that may be helpful to that analysis to do that work sort of more internally, and happy to, Bilal, work with you on anything else you sort of need in terms of, and maybe we could even work together on kind of what the research question is, based on the data available, but.
I actually did take a stab at translating our scope of work into a staff-led
Yes.
scope of work, which directly implicates you guys hopefully and the identifying.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right, the variety of resources.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It went out.
So we can turn to that after.
Yeah, I think, just some,
Yeah.
any other comments? Otherwise, we'll kind of maybe turn to that and just kind of walk through, trying to get some framework around this. Good, okay, so let's
All right.
kind of
Share
share that a little bit.
here. Yeah, so a lot of the content is basically the same, but I tried to think through, how many staff we'd need, and I tried to also think through what the hour request would be so that we can sort of plan it and not just sort of guess and get too far gone. The first task was market analysis. This is the same. And I just wanted to have this opening slide to sort of indicate what we think the goal is. And I think this is just to suggest specific types of sports facilities to research based on, demographic and economic data, based on people who live here and what the interests are. And I think we have a lot of that from you all and then from Tom as well. And we can get it from the state. So I think, analyzing this data is not too complex. I think that first task, which of existing conditions, which is, inventorying all the sports facilities that we have, and identifying some of these specific details like the size, the layout, the capacity, and then, getting into other, data about visitation and how many people use it. And I think we have a lot of this internally, so I don't think the staff need is huge between myself and somebody else. And then, spending about 4 to 6 hours doing the work, spending a couple of meetings chatting about our research. I think that task can be complete pretty quickly.
So Adrian, I would imagine, Rex, I think in your last report, you guys have all your facilities listed. Is that correct? And does Parks do the same thing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, in which report? We have all of our facilities. We have a list of all of our facilities.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
in the, I was thinking about, I just thought in your, something popped up in one of my searches about like your annual report includes a list of all your facilities or something like that.
Oh,
Rex, comment?
yeah. Well, we didn't necessarily do an annual report, but
Okay.
we certainly have that, a list of all of our spaces, yeah.
So I would think between you, Darren, and even Jeff, all the high school and facilities, which, I mean, I know the schools facility, MCPS, those are not really technically, are they open for rental or they're not?
They can be.
Yeah, it can
They
be, yeah,
They can
yeah.
be?
Use, yeah.
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 To use, yeah.
So community, the community cups, does that go through
Yeah.
cups?
Easy cups, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
So maybe for this one, it's the public agency sort of sending a list, maybe delegating that to a staffer who I could contact and work with to make sure that we have the same information for all the facilities, and to the extent possible. And then that task would be, we'd be done with it.
Can I just say that just having that list centralized is a huge benefit. It has never been done.
With all these.
That's a victory.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a huge lift.
Yeah.
And I think regionally, when we look at it, I've been doing a lot of research on MSA's site and their completed reports. There are a number of reports that were done in the last several years that took regional looks at inventory. And so I'm hoping that when I talk to Terry, there's information, it's public information, reports are done. Can we just have him maybe help us a little bit get into regional? So we get local and regional, I think it's not that big of a lift.
Yeah,
Correct.
and it's just about maybe following up and make sure that we have the same information for all of them.
Okay.
That's the main gig, I think.
Yeah.
So, okay, the second task within market analysis was this sort of trends and opportunities. So this is where we would analyze participation data, demographics data, and then talk to the, people in various sports. This is really where Tom's resources, I think,
Yes.
would be useful. So we're basically trying to evaluate, what are the demand drivers for different sports? What are those sports? And to the extent that we have some data and qualitative data to sort of make a conclusion on, right? So it's a little bit of the quantitative and data analysis we easily get from planning, and make it to tables. That's like an hour or two of work, for somebody who's doing it. we would need participation data on sports. I think Tom's group probably has it. So again, getting raw data and then making tables out of it is not complicated. Maybe a couple of hours there and, also accounting for obtaining the data. And then doing outreach. I think that's where there's a little bit of time. We're setting up 30, 45-minute calls with, 2 or 3 people or whoever it is. And then we take the stock of all of that and then,
Right,
present that information. So.
absolutely. I think that's, I'm trying to think where we would, Tom's group, you think has that?
For the participation
Yeah.
data, I think he might. I think certainly, yeah, and maybe rec as well for some of the, programs. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm not entirely sure what that data looks like.
Right.
So that's something that may take a little bit more time to figure out.
I think, I'm just gonna chime in real quick. I think we gotta look at trends. I could say, like, we could certainly, participation data, by the time we extracted it, I mean, we're talking, and then analyze it, a significant amount of effort, but it may not even tell you what the trends are, just based on, because it's gonna be just based on what we're offering. But I do believe that Tom's work from the Sports Fitness Industry Association captures all of that in terms of, what's trending upward.
Right.
But what data do you look at, Adrian and Darren, when you're planning for like new facilities and new programming? Presumably you have some data that you look at to sort of figure out what's coming.
Sure, Tom's information is actually a big indicator of like which way directions are shifting. Obviously that's sports related. We'll reach out to other facilities and colleagues in the region and, look at what's popular for them as well. We do a lot of networking at the state level with the Maryland Recreation and Parks Association. And a lot of networking. I'd say most of our data, though, is going to come from the National Recreation and Parks Association, where the state is going to be more networking and anecdotal. The National Recreation and Parks Association are going to have, greater trends in that area and be able to, where you can look at trends analysis. One of the things that we do with NRPA also is if I've got an area of interest, I'll have a facility market report done. And so all of the ones I currently have are somewhat dated for our facilities. I did recently get one for a small area in the Montgomery Village area for something that I was working on. But yeah, so NRPA, it's going to be a big source.
And for parks, we have the Parks Recreation Open Space Plan, where every 5 years we do a randomized scientific survey of folks asking about the park amenities that are parks and recreation amenities that are important to them, the level of adequacy, and then we combine that to figure out where our gaps are. We also do a bunch of engagement and outreach related to that, and of course we do on every park we do surveys, so we find out what the amenities are there. The most recent 2022 pros plan in terms of trends recommended, obviously pickleball. There's a ribbon cutting at East Norbeck tonight. Everyone's invited.
Yeah.
But also we're starting work on our first 18-hole disc golf course because that was a gap that was identified in that plan. And also we're also always attuned to things like even emerging sports. Like there's something called beach tennis that we didn't even know about, but we were able to convert a beach volleyball net into a convertible beach tennis net. So we're always sort of keeping abreast of trends as people contact us about it. And then we also track our permitting rates. So we understand when cricket is emerging and all of our cricket fields are heavily permitted, we identify the need to expand amenities like that. So we track data in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I would just add, similarly, we do a lot of community outreach and surveys. The problem is going back and pulling, every time we did it, where we're not good is tying, all the data together. Now, at the end of the year, we'll look at like overall usage data, but there's going to be so many independent variables in that. But we will use some of the same analysis that Darren mentioned to see what things are driving. Obviously, for us, he'd mentioned flag football, volleyball,
Yes.
pickleball, that sort of thing.
So is it with both of you guys, is there like standard stuff in your budget that enables that you guys are always doing these surveys and kind of doing this task, whereas if we work together, we can maybe identify a task and you guys would have resources to help us do the surveying or that, is that a possibility? And
I would- Yeah, I would pull from what we already had. Like, so for example, Darren just mentioned the pros plan. I literally just looked at it last night because I wanted to steal a quote from it. And by the way, I'll just say Parks and Recreation are among the top 3 of what people say make a livable community. So
Yes.
just get my plug in. No, but I refer back to some of the plans are more dated, but like Darren said, they just Park and Planning just conducted a big study of, you know, what people are looking for. So in terms of like other data, those are going to be the places where we have, I would say, things that are easily accessible.
Is there, and that NRPA that you were discussing before, is there something like in some of those reports, or are those reports that you do or sometimes have them do, are those relatively expensive, or do they break their data down by state and region? How does that work, Adrian, on their information?
So they'll do a lot of surveying nationally where people enter information. And so they have some information that they'll report back out on like the state of and the trends of Parks and Recreation. But the facility market reports that I have were all done on local facilities. I only have maybe 2 or 3 that are really recently updated because I did those for new builds. Like I probably have one for or potential builds like Montgomery Village, Silver Spring, Wheaton, I believe. And then the other ones had done some time ago and they're older. But the information may or may not be somewhat still relevant for that. I have them in a notebook somewhere. I can, dig that out. But doing a survey of literature to see what's available at NRPA, and then I would say a lot of the community planning work, master plans for the different areas are where we pull information as well.
I mean, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel with that. I mean, I think it's a lot of, I think there's a mix of some raw data to the extent that we get like maybe the usage of certain facilities, but we would also weight the extent to which we depend on the conclusions from that. So I think it'll just be a consortium of studies that have been conducted, the plans, which are already really rigorous, maybe get some raw data. We'll definitely get it for the demographics and so cut some numbers there, and then just take stock of it. And I think maybe it's even a matter of presenting it to the group to make sense of all the various evidence that we collect in this task.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to figure out if they have availability and then what's out there, like if you can do NRPA, can do something, or we determine we need something, maybe that's a less expensive way of doing it, right? I mean, that's all I was just trying to figure out.
Intercept studies like at the Soccerplex, where there's people doing interactions with the families and parents that are there for tournaments to get feedback from there. Like,
Do they do that now?
no, I'm saying
Yeah,
maybe
just
we
do
should
it.
make that part of this plan I hear from parents that live here about their travels.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really helpful to hear from our own community about their experiences here, but also where they're going and how much they wish they could bring the events here. So I think there's a way, I know we may find a college that would do an intercept study, but I'd really like to hear. University of Maryland. College.
Here we are.
Like students that could do intercepts, what are they called? Surveying,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
One property at Matt's facility.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to turn my back. To talk to families and parents, more parents to get their feedback.
Students would be eager to do that in all kinds of programs, marketing, political.
Yes. So it'd be really fun.
Internship, we'd call it work-based learning, and
And so then you'll hear from out of town families and parents, but you'll also hear from local parents.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
I don't know what those questions might look like, but I think that's real-time data. I've had two parents in the last week talk to me about the St. James in Virginia.
Oh, yes, it's Springfield, I have it right
Yeah.
here, Springfield, you gotta check it out. Springfield,
Yesterday,
Virginia, St. James.
we were talking about sports tourism, somebody came up.
It's
Look at
amazing.
the St. James, so.
I know,
You can pull in.
out to try and talk to the CEO over there. Trying to-
Do you know what I'm talking, do you know the place?
Yeah.
It's
I
amazing.
have not been personally. I've talked to so many people that are.
We should take a field trip.
So,
I honestly, I'll take you guys there, I'll pay for it.
yeah.
I think we,
So,
I think we, you think I'm playing? I'm
No, no.
serious.
Tommy, did you want to?
Expensive data, real time.
of fast.
Okay.
Oh.
Jeff, is there anything NCPS does with tracking, with tracking kind of participation in the sports and what's trending and how many, I guess, even kids how many kids are gonna get cut because of availability and stuff of that nature? Do you guys have anything in that regard?
We have our participation data, so we
Yeah.
can certainly provide that. A couple of things I wanted to chime in with. First, the Aspen Institute and Project Play report was just released recently that has the trends of youth sports, both in the youth sport arena, but also in school sports. And Tom is in his group are very instrumental in providing the data and supporting that. We're also part of that package of the most recent release, featured with the girls flag football, as well as being the first school district in the country to have pickleball as a varsity sport. So there's a showcase in there. So I wanted to highlight that as a data source, as well as our National Federation of State High School Associations, the NFHS. It's the governing body of high school sports.
Oh.
They have a participation report and study and survey that comes out each year. So those are some national areas to pull from as part of looking at those trends, but really looking right here on our home soil and what we have just experienced in MCPS with pickleball and girls flag football.
Yes.
I mean, it is just, both of those have been monumental success stories. When you look at the participation data, and our superintendent, spoke to our administrators yesterday and
Yes.
highlighted this. And one point that I love that he made is that a majority of the students that are participating in both of those activities are new athletes, right? They're not coming from other sports. When we look at girls flag, over 71% of the students participating in girls flag are new athletes. And so those are the trends that we're looking at in terms of sports that I think can really help drive some of the needs assessment, right? Where we are and where are we going with this? So we're happy to provide whatever data you think is relevant.
And I say something very quickly, Jeff, you'll be happy. My daughter is in middle school. She's playing flag football and she did it through the rec department at Wheaton High School. She recruited half of the team and none of them were athletes. So I can attest, it's true. And they loved it so much. So, great.
And Jeff, I just gotta say a quick shout out to the Coyotes on winning the,
Oh, yes.
was that a state champion or state tournament? Is that what it was?
That is the first state tournament, state championship, and we brought it home to Montgomery. And I think Frederick had a year on us. They started last year, so there were a lot of people that thought that they would be the favorites, but the Coyotes came in and stormed it. It was great. Northwest had a strong showing too.
I tweeted about it.
So it was just a
It's,
perfect ending to the season.
No, Clarksburg.
Clarksburg.
Clarksburg,
High School,
yeah. It's on my Twitter feed. I retweeted.
That was at Raven Stadium last Friday night.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was great. I was getting live feeds from the
yeah.
stadium.
awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so, well, thanks. So it sounds like, but this is, as I think Adrian pointed out before, right? The hard part, sometimes you have all this information. It's a matter of kind of gathering it all in and then kind of being able to get it
Yeah,
through
so we have to revise this estimate,
Yeah.
but I still think 6 to 8 hours of staff time to do that, to collect them, read through them, sort of pull takeaways, have internal meetings to sort of come up with a summary to present back to the task force for this task is maybe it's more like 10 to 12 hours. I don't know, to be thorough.
Mhm.
Hey, Bilal.
Yeah.
Just a kind of a clarifying question, and it's something that it's a theme that's come up before, but I'm a little concerned that if we rely heavily on the agencies here and the kind of the very local user base, I think all three of us, right, rec, parks, and schools, we can talk a lot about what people locally are playing and where the demand is for sort of that local. That's the thing that we do, right? We provide the access to sort of local outdoor recreation. I think I'm staring at this phrase market analysis on the top of your slide here, and I'm wondering what is the market demand that we really need to be measuring. And I think, what do we mean when we talk about sports tourism or a sports tourism facility? Because that might be a totally different analysis than what sports are being played locally by Montgomery County residents and young people. So I just wanted to flag that just because we have the statistics and the data available that we have, that may not lend itself to the actual questions that we have.
I
So-
think that's a great point,
It is.
Darren, and I appreciate you raising it again. And I appreciate you speaking for the other side that's missing today in today's meeting. Because
Yeah, I'm conscious of that absence.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think that's where we're getting, Terry and Tom and Matt, back into the room, kind of talking and getting them up to speed, and what can be added to that, I think is important,
They
right?
may have additional information that's
Yes.
more market, that's sort of a different type of analysis than this, but I also think part of that does come down to the task force. This is like all these data points, they're just gonna be like, okay, here's one sport, it's growing by this much, here's kind of who plays it, and here's what facilities we have. But I think that question of like, what's the market potential here is kind of a value judgment that people might be able to make. Okay, it's pickleball, it's flag football, it's fencing and horse riding, I don't know, whatever those things are. And it's sort of like, okay, well, we think we can expand the horse riding kind of infrastructure, right? Or we think we can build on pickleball more
I
broadly.
think Matt
so-
can tell us what he's not able to take. I mean,
Right,
that's what we're
right.
looking for is, I don't know if he shared it with you last, yeah, but like, what aren't you able to bring to your facility?
The lost business. fund.
Yeah.
The lost business.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and not just people who are inquiring that he's turning down, but things he could go after
Right.
that he's not able to accommodate,
Yeah.
both.
Right, so I think, yeah, like having that data in front of you and then sort of comparing it to, okay, well, we know we can't accommodate this sport, and clearly there's a lot of people that are attracted to it or not, and then you maybe.
Well, and that goes back to, again, the task force and our assignment and what Darren's pointing out there in the market, what is the market? Right? It's got to be what else is being built around us.
Right.
Right? So I know there's a study that's just, Stadium Authority is just starting in Baltimore. They're looking at a facility up in Baltimore. They're gonna do market research and everything else of that nature. And so again, as they take that regional look, they'll do a regional inventory is to kind of understand what that is and what that's coming. Because if somebody's building this, right in our neighboring county, how does that affect? I'm not saying they both can't be successful, but we want to make sure that we gather that. And that's part of, what we're gonna look at. So. I think-
Sorry, I'm late,
Okay.
the funding piece.
Yes.
So the Maryland Office of Sports doesn't have any available funding for project for analysis and studies like this?
I don't know.
No, no, okay.
Well,
I don't know.
Explicitly asked.
We haven't asked.
Well, I know that one of the meetings, the office said, if it's in the cricket space, we can help you.
Right,
That's
right,
what
that's right. But that was
But-
in part because the owner of the team may have supported the funding,
Yeah, very good.
which is, changes the equation a little bit.
Okay,
Bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we could still do that separately, independently, just because if they want to, we could help facilitate it, but.
Well, yeah, I think looking at, to continue to look at different funding sources and what we can do.
Yeah.
Right, as far as to get any funding. The point was we had put the big study and the council doesn't have anything allocated to it and they don't want to,
they don't want to do a supplemental.
Right, they don't want to do.
You missed my speech
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not
That's the
asking.
recording.
Yes, this is a-
She's not
and this
asking.
is a-
I'm not asking yet, especially after we're gonna have a brand new council, brand new county executive. Let's take two steps, one internally and two, the consultant that Keith mentioned.
Yeah.
To tie everything together, that makes more sense. And for that request, we can submit the request during the budget next year, so that makes more sense.
So I think what we can do is try and do a lot of the legwork
Mhm.
as a task force, kind of put this in, have in-depth conversations, but gather the data, put that in, and then try and come up with the scope of what that final piece is and consultant wise, and then build it into the actual budget.
rather than.
Or
May I jump in real quick? So I think our first step may need to be a little bit more simple, rather than trying to go grab the data. The first step, I think, is identifying where where do we want to grab the data from? We talked about it a little bit, but if we had like a data development agenda, like, okay, here are a list of like key sources, and here's some key, like here's a 1 sentence, 2 sentence summary about what we can pull from it, then I think that that will help us as a starting point versus just trying to go grab a bunch of stuff.
So
Places.
that's inherent in taking this task, and I don't, my point here, I think with laying this out is that we wouldn't do that as a task force. We would sort of siphon it off to staff that you guys have, and then we come back and present all of that to you. So exactly what you're saying, but instead of you doing it specifically, we're sort of delegating this to staff, and then we can come back with that literature review of what we have and pair it with the demographic data, because that's also just like we can do that simultaneously. Different people can bring
Yeah.
all this information together. And I think that was kind of what I was thinking, was like, it would be more, you give you the data and the findings, and then from there sort of figure out what the takeaways are. That's where it turns back to you. Let us do some of that legwork that you're talking about.
Yeah,
But
I will
hopefully based on
say,
resources from your.
Bilal, I know you gotta be like the super A+ student. Like you just seem like that. But I do think we are a little bit ambitious in the amount of time and legwork that I think it's gonna take to do it. Even, you know, like with delegating it, just doing some recent research, just opening up several documents and just trying to analyze them or look to see if they're relevant. You know, I find myself 4 or 5 hours later, and I've only looked at, maybe a handful and wrote up in less than a page of notes. And so I do want to caution us, because I lend myself to being on that side as well, overly ambitious that, oh yeah, we could get this done in this amount of time, when it does take a little bit, a little bit more time to sort of filter through some of the stuff. And I know where to look. And so that's what makes it, if I delegate it out, others don't maybe have the same, sense of where to go for the information as I do. I'm not saying, because I'll need help. This is not something that, I'll certainly have to enlist reinforcements for.
and identifying gaps of data we need and what those resources might be. I don't even know.
Is it easier if you say it's 20 hours, but we need to get it done from now until, just to get the data and send it to Bilal as a centralized person, from now until,
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, that would be great, because the way we were thinking was like, we
yeah,
had a team.
January.
Right.
January.
January.
I don't celebrate Christmas, so no.
Then you're gonna.
No, but I was thinking like, let's say there's this, that we have this sort of coordinating call, sort of like, here are some of the studies that we know we've identified. We'll spend about an hour to dig into Google, do some more. Most studies are generally organized in a systematic way. So, let's sort of go to the findings, figure out what data those findings were based on. We can kind of figure out ways to sort of skim these documents for what we need, because there's going to be overlap. So I think if we have a systematic plan and a meeting to kind of get organized on what those tasks are, we can move through it a little bit faster. But I mean, recognize that it's going to take a little bit of time, but I also think it's not so much like everybody just kind of does their own thing. Like, I think we can come up with that plan, but we just need to get on a call and agree generally that we're going to be reviewing studies. Someone will cut a little bit of data together, and then within some time frame, we come back and put that together. Maybe it is more like a 20-hour type lift, but I don't know. And we can also see, maybe get started and see what kind of time it's taking. So other people, whoever is working on it, whether it's yourself or somebody you delegated to, is also working on other things. So we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and then you just raised another point is that, you're gonna jump on calls. Does that mean everybody in a task force, or is it we're gonna get a small group of the task force together and kind of almost like.
Or their delegates for the staff.
Or the delegates to the staff on that. Because I agree with what Adrian's saying. I mean, I'll share that, the one benefit is the power of AI. I spent probably about 3 or 4 hours just in the last week kind of searching and using AI, and it's great. You get these studies together and you have Ask AI and it starts pulling out the relevant data from the studies, and it's interesting what it starts pulling out for you and how you can use it. But it's still, to Adrian's point, it's still, several hours of digging and stuff of that nature, but even with the tools, it's improvement. So how do we, so going back to that is, and I agree with that, is do we start working on, and do you want to continue through the project?
Sure.
Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, see what else is out there, because the other thing is sort of the case studies was a big part of that scope of work, where the goal is to really understand, okay, of the facilities that we want to look at, what is their size and physical layout, how much did it cost to build them, how are they funded? And we kind of want to base it on the types of things we would want. Maybe that's informed by the case, market analysis, maybe it happens simultaneously. As you had indicated as well. So yeah, this is really just there's only one slide for this one, but research case studies of these categories, ones that are designed to attract youth and amateur sports, facilities that are designed to support specific sports that are growing in popularity, facilities that balance youth and amateur sports with a public use, and then also looking more at that sort of stadium type of development and really getting case studies of all of these things, and maybe ones that blend into, overlap with one another a little bit. And I think for that, it's really just a matter of, Googling around to find the case studies. We might be given some that we want to study, look at the studies that underpin them, look through the whatever public debates there were, council staff reports or whatever it is that we can find, and then start stitching together that information. Yeah.
Well, is case studies or feasibility studies?
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of both, right? So what's the feasibility for this case, right? So, but we don't think we necessarily need to get into the super details of their pro forma, but like the high level costs and the general funding structure, like what was public, what was private, how do we get the private sort of side to put some skin in the game, whatever, those kinds of details.
What facilities are working? What are open and what are working?
Yeah, and hopefully, within this, you could also maybe even reach out, right, to some of these jurisdictions.
St. James.
St. James, right, and then have calls and then sort of go through some of that. 'Cause some of these things aren't even published, so you kind of just have to call and get that information off the record.
Does any of the things that you guys mentioned earlier, does NRPA have anything like that where they have facility studies or anything else? And Jeff, any of that stuff like the Aspen Institute or anything of that, do they actually go into data on operations that have started and success or anything like that nature? That you guys would think of?
The biggest thing that I could think of is, and I'm gonna forget how to describe it. Like, well, they do an assessment of that includes things like what level of service in certain areas are, like how much folks are spending, size of facilities, that type of thing. And so it's kind of on a high level. I can certainly poke around and see what else I can come up with, but that's the only thing that I can think of at the moment. And it's something that they send out where folks, submit their individual agency information. I just actually sent information back on one which was about equity in youth sports. So they do various studies on different topics. It's just a matter of trying to go through, what they've got posted on their research files and seeing what we can find.
And that's the NRPA?
Yes, NRPA.
I can look into some of the other sources that I've already noted in terms of that, this aspect, and if it's included, I would be interested. And Darren, I don't know if you have potential with your colleagues in Prince George's County, but the state of the sportsplex, right? The indoor and just the entire campus, right? The stadium facility that they have there, in terms of the balance, right, of local programming versus, what they're bringing in year round there. We have an interest in it, of course. Our entire indoor track season occurs at the sportsplex.
Yeah.
So we use that. Our teams are down there. We're busing the schools, and so I'd be interested in a facility like that. as well as some other facilities like Blandare Park in Howard County, right? That has, you know, a series of artificial turf baseball and softball fields.
Yep.
Right? And that attract a significant amount of use because year-round weather, that we have played playoff games over in Howard County to get them in, because in series of, you know, when it's rained for several days, we can't get them in here locally. We've gone and looked outside the county to play those. So I think there's just different aspects of those facilities and what use is there, not just for the local programming, to Darren's point, but also what other type of activities, tournaments, and events are being attracted. And again, obviously the revenue piece of that brings in.
Yeah, there's also the Delaware's Turfplex, I think they call it, or something. That's a big one where a lot of people locally here go all the time for youth sports and things of that nature. It was recently developed. I understand it's still maybe not break even yet, but that's another one we can dig into a little bit.
Where is it? Delaware?
Delaware, yeah, they're actually, Kelly, it's interesting because I think they've, since it's opened, I think they've now built 3 or 4 hotels.
Oh, wow,
And
that's what we need to
that's-
visit.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Based on what we heard yesterday, Bilal, the
Yeah.
hotel market study.
Yeah, right, yeah.
so it's just that whole piece.
Yeah.
Okay. What was next?
Okay. The next one was the site suitability analysis, sort of a GIS analysis of sites that are viable, and I can't spell, to accommodate one or a range of facility types, and then we could sort of list the pros and cons of potential sites. And so sort of thinking about looking at sort of greenfield sites and maybe separating publicly versus privately owned, and then looking at infill sites where we don't just look at any site, but we have some criteria so that we're not looking at, you know, a multifamily development that was just built, but like you know, where there's high vacancy or underutilization of a lot compared to the zoning, things like that, that we can do. And I know Darren, now, I know you've done a high level version of this. So maybe there's an opportunity to sort of like revisit what you did, add a little more of that rigor where you feel more comfortable presenting that publicly. But to the extent that you've done a lot of this, you know, you and your staff may be able to help take a lead on this. I don't know what you think about that, but.
Well, yeah, well, my finding is that the parkland does not have low-hanging fruit for a large stadium. So I didn't look outside of parkland.
Oh,
Right. Well, I mean, just like eventually recreating that so that we can maybe draw that conclusion as a task force. You know, and obviously looking at parkland, but then, you know, we can look at some, to the extent there are any greenfield sites, there really aren't.
Wait, Flint, you better put it on the. what?
Sure, yeah, we could look in.
Where the landlord, the Lord and Taylor used to be.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's my dream place for a facility like this, near
Yeah.
the,
Buy a mall, convert a mall.
and buy a 495, like, perfect.
Right. So what are the criteria that it falls into, and then maybe looking for other.
What's the space like at East County right now?
A shopping area that sits.
Viva White Oak.
White Oak is
Viva
taking
White
up
Oak.
space, yeah.
Yeah, so there's ways to get to that by a GIS, and it's not that difficult. Well, it's a time consuming thing and we want to be diligent and rigorous. But
I
You know, it's
just
very
told you, I
technical.
just told you the answer.
you just said it, they're doing it, I mean,
White-
you have Ted Lerner's phone number?
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
Yes, I know they're looking at a couple of things right now.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, and maybe there's some, maybe through DGS and some of the contacts they have
Sure.
over there, maybe they can identify the more of the private sector land. that's out
Yeah, I was
there.
just gonna say, I think
Yeah,
you need to look at vacant buildings
Yeah,
or.
well, I know they work
You
with
know what? It's a
JLL.
great
Yeah, I know they work-
Space.
Yeah, they work with JLL and stuff of that
Yeah,
nature. with
actually,
that.
JLL would be a really good person to talk to.
And that's, you know, I've got a couple contacts over there. I know DGS does. And I'm sure.
So almost like instead of a GIS analysis, more of a broker led.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah. So, and then they have all the details of the various properties, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's substantive change here.
Like the idea of JLL. They have a whole
Yeah,
vision.
yes.
Consider using a brokerage firm instead of an GIS analysis.
And I think there's.
Or both.
And I think the strongest connection probably would be DGS with them, because I know they do a lot of work with them.
Mhm.
You know, I know, you know,
Yeah.
again, we can explore.
Yeah.
Explore that a little bit. Okay.
Will be a song, great hospital.
Okay, sweet. Actually, that's all I have.
Yay.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That is great. So the question here is as a next step for us, as we're leaving this, we kind of framed a lot of stuff, but as we get out of this meeting, I think Adrian kind of brought up is like, how do we get to that next level to kind of start saying, okay, this is what we actually need to get together? And is that something that we try and form a list now, while we've got some time? I don't think we have clarity on what is the next step. I think we kind of framed a lot of stuff, and I'd like to get some clarity on what is the next step as we, you know, start working over this next 30 days.
Right. I wonder, so like maybe the first question is, do you see this being one after the other, or do you want some of these things to move simultaneously? Because if so, what we can do is sort of set up calls to get people moving on the various aspects, or set up a call for the people that actually physically want to do the legwork here, whether that's people in the task force or staff. And we set up a quick 30-minute to hour call and really drill down on what that work is, and we can send it to you to get confirmation on, or you can be a part of that call and then get moving on that work. I mean, I think it's sort of difficult to do it now because we kind of have to come get some advice, maybe share screen, look online, kind of write a little game plan out, but I think we can do that over one call with whoever wants to provide that legwork support.
Any thoughts on that? I think Adrian kind of brought up before is like, yeah, but I'm probably gonna do this, I'm gonna use my staff on some of this, but I'm probably gonna do it is I almost feel like we've got to give, this is kind of framing the work to give to the staff.
Yeah,
Is where I kind of view it, is if everybody's agreeing on that.
Yeah.
yes.
I do think we need one step, and I know it may take a little bit longer, but I think to be able to get there is, could there be a template that it says what is it that we want to collect from, like, if we're doing essentially a survey of literature, you know, a template that we could say, all right, here's the document, here's the source, here's the information that can be found there, and whatever other reference notes to it. So we can, and it's gonna take staff some time to that, is they're gonna have to look to see if the document's relevant or not. Maybe it's the source, the keywords, a brief statement about what can be found, and then we know where to dig deeper, because we can research ourselves to death. You know what I mean? And then we could go, yeah, okay, they said in this you know, this source we could get this type of information. Then maybe we can pare it down a little bit further to say, okay, and we're going to go back to these. Here's all the literature that we reviewed. Now we have a compendium of all the literature we reviewed. Now we're going to go back to these 4, 5, 6 places and really do a deeper dive into it. That's just a thought. We don't have to do it that way, but I think then, you know, we could cover a lot of ground that way and maybe pare down the list.
So just I'm clear on that. What you're really saying is kind of almost have a brainstorming session like we were starting to outline here today of here's the potential areas that we can gather this data, here's what's available in these resources, and then have the team get together and say, okay, what do we need?
Yeah, but we're almost recording it. Like, even, I know this sounds crazy, but even if it was like a Google form, every literature that we looked at, you know, we drop it into a document, then we come back and we have a complete sort of, like I said, listing of a survey of literature that we did. Then we could go back and pare down from that. Just a thought. I mean, somebody might have, you know, better way to do it, but.
That's exactly what I think we were thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that organization call would be like maybe figure out what that template could look like. I mean, maybe we could do it here too, but I think it might benefit us to maybe peruse a few, get together and be like, okay, here's like 10 or 15 documents. Maybe we find some more. Here's what elements we want from the summary, go, you know, kind of thing. So I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
Bilal, from Parks Department's point of view, I mean, we sent you
A lot, yeah.
you know, a bunch of documents that I think are worth looking at, that already exist, again, in the spirit of not reinventing the wheel. And I think you could pull some high level observations out of that fairly easily.
Absolutely.
And maybe not try to look for the perfect source.
Yeah, I think, Dan, I think you raised a good point, and I think it's been raised a couple times. There's a lot, there's so much stuff that's sitting out there that we almost kind of.
Yeah.
But it's, I like the idea of saying, hey, dump it in, let's centralize it, and
Yeah.
then figure out what we're gonna do and how we ask that question.
Yeah, but to include all of the resources that Darren said already,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think Jeff said he would provide what he's got as well as far as participation. Another question for the college, and we're talking a lot of man hours and stuff. Is there
Yeah.
something here that would be beneficial to some students helping? Because I'm thinking about business, all different types of majors.
Business majors, political science majors, marketing majors. We've got great students who'd be happy to participate in this. We can get that project started whenever you like.
I think that would be.
Kelly work with them?
Yeah, and do you know Yana Anderson?
I do.
Yeah.
So, I teach at Montgomery College
Okay.
and, I've known Yana for years. Yana knows about this. She was at the meeting
really?
yesterday, so she knows about this task force and pulled me aside and said, I want to help. I want to get involved. So,
Yeah.
between you and Yana and
Well, that's-
students, it would be awesome.
That's what I think.
If we could cobble together a team of like interns, college students,
do that.
I mean, that would be
Yeah.
Yeah.
a huge resource. So
Yeah.
like, that is worth a lot of money. frankly.
Well, and I don't want to just throw it together. Like I want to, it's something that could be extremely beneficial. You know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that's what I want to make sure if we're doing it, I want to make sure we're grabbing that piece of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a big opportunity, could be beneficial on
We
both
should
sides.
like, and just marketing, my marketing head,
Mhm.
we should like have somebody even from the council or the Montgomery College, because you have an amazing communications team.
Right.
Like record the students participating in this as part of the end
Yeah.
presentation for this and see how the students contribute to this.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
Huge. And we could even give credit for.
That's what I was talking about.
Yes.
If we think about a stipend, I don't know if it's coming from your budget or ours, we.
Yeah.
There's no money.
I'm like,
Pledge volunteers, we can say.
That's stipend, so it's really, it's a work-based learning opportunity, and not just in hospitality, but also marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
business.
Business, you're talking about, yeah.
Research.
you're-
I can give them food.
Okay.
That's all I can do.
They love to eat.
I was gonna
So,
say.
but I think if we're gonna,
I'm Steve Greenfield, I don't think we've met.
yeah, we,
Contact, yeah.
so Steve,
That would be fun.
what we need to do is then, I would think if we're gonna do this, we need to get them involved right away.
right away, let's get that.
We gotta
all
get
set up.
this going, because that is the resource then, because as you're taking all this data and everything that's already existing, and you're asking them to kind of, okay, get this answer for me, get this answer for us, get this answer, and they can do the research and the
It's
legwork
exciting.
Yeah.
on all that.
Yeah.
If we can get like at least like 3 to 4 students,
3 or 4.
I think we're good. 5 is maybe a great, too many is also hard, we want to make sure everybody.
Listen
do, but-
also what she said on sending them to Soccerplex and starting to.
The survey,
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we can work with the students to do
Good
that, as long as they have leadership with them. And they can do it.
And
And
would
they,
you want a pool of 10 students that maybe you're interviewing them? Because that interview
Okay.
process can be a learning process for
Yeah.
them too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
so
Yeah,
I
that's it.
just left, I teach a class at Montgomery College
Yeah.
and just left them at the Hilton Rockville with my staff,
Yeah.
do a tour. And they were so excited to be out of the classroom, in the hotel, doing a walkthrough, talking to management, learning more about the day to day. And
Nice.
that's just the hospitality program, but
How many
you all-
kids do you have?
Other,
How much?
too many, 26.
Well, there you go, 26.
Yeah,
26.
but,
What is that you teach?
lodging and hospitality sales, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we have to provide the leadership to the students.
Yes.
I think it'd be a great resource, a great experience. So are you suggesting we do a data dump first as a group and then sort through all the resources of data we have in like a work session?
Yeah, I think,
Is
as
that what you're?
Jeff and Darren and Isham said, we have a lot of this information. We've already identified a lot of these studies. Maybe there's a task for one of the students, hey, see if you find anything else from the the national context or whatever. And then we already have a list of documents, at least for the lit review kind of analysis to get going. one of the students can work with some hard numbers on demographics and make some tables out of that, right? Things like that. So we can really, if we have a team here, like we can, and get people, okay, somebody else, we need to start developing a survey. What are the types of questions we'd ask? How would you deploy it? Where would you go? Start reaching out to Matt Libber to organize when you'll go there, things like that.
We've got a whole business analytics, the major now, so it could
There you
be
go.
students as well.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
So, okay, so getting back to the point, I think Adrian referenced it earlier, and that is, there's this Google Drive, some people maybe not be fans of Google. But is there anything that the county has that could be a resource where people can just actually dump, or do we need to send all the documents to you? And then you put it into a
No.
file that's shared or share?
I mean, we have Teams, so I can create like a Teams channel if everybody and I'll send a link to a folder if everybody wants to throw their things in there. Darren, I won't make you do that because you already sent it to me, so I can do that, but the NRPA study that Adrian referred to, some of these studies that Jeff referred to, like the NFHS study, you want to dump those in there, or just send it to me and I can put it all in one place. I mean, that's easy.
Well, I'm trying to get everybody to make sure everybody has access to it.
Yeah, so
So
they can
this
all
way, if you
refer
want
to it.
to, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I'll create a channel.
Great, yeah, I know there's something that pops up on my Teams thing.
Oh.
That's a channel or something.
Yeah, I think that's just for the chat for the call, but happy to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
create the thing, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, and then, so next steps, we're gonna create this, area to kind of dump the
Yep.
data. And we're gonna get everybody down again, because you already sent it, Bilal, I'll dump it in there. But we're kind of, any resources you get, kind of dump it into there. We'll start working and identifying students and Montgomery College.
Interview too, if you want to go through that route.
Yeah, so I think we need to get that going as we're putting this data, and then. Do we try and set up an interim call for anybody who is interested? Maybe not mandatory for the entire task force, but anybody who's interested to jump on an interim call to try and start framing this out? Or do you think just a data dump, trying to get the students identified, we're on target for next month?
I think we'd be on target, and I think once we get the students identified and have a core team, then we can have that call.
Yeah.
And it's essentially organizing it for the students, and everybody on the task force who wants to weigh in and make sure that that's checks out can be there, right?
And I like that better, because that gets, I'll get Terry and Tom and Matt up to date, and then the next meeting, we can all have a session together and then determine where we're going. from
Yeah,
there.
and maybe the students can be there if we get them on board, that'd be great.
And if we have a sort of a job description, if you will, for the students.
Can recommend.
we can-
Great idea.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wow, this is awesome. How about workforce development?
Yes.
Are they done? Yeah, no.
Yeah. I
You're
think
done?
We're just about done, yeah.
Oh.
Is there, we went through a lot, I know we're a little bit early here, but I know we had the other topic today, but given that this development came up and everything we just worked through in the last 20 minutes, maybe just open it up and turn it over for any new business. And we'll table the other conversation for maybe next month. Anybody else have anything else? It was a lot. I appreciate everybody's time. Darren?
I don't have anything new.
Okay. Anything?
Hi.
Otherwise, thank you.
No, except for you.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
yeah, we'll follow up with the setup of the channel and
My
start
card.
getting
Thank
at the
you.
source, okay?
Just send me.
Thanks,
my bill.
everyone.
Thank you so much.